You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
Good evening, folks. It's Sunday night, so it's time for me blabbing on for 2 hours in your humble earlobes. So that was Johnny Cash, for those who don't know. Can I get a mic check? 1, 2, anyone? Also, yeah, just on that note, I do like to call people sausage from time to time. Sorry. And pickle. That won't make any sense if anyone's not on the chat room, but anyway, there you go. So, tonight I'm going to be talking about the denial, hassle, ridicule factor, which is probably something we've all come up against, speaking as we do in the circles that we do. However, first, I have two things to, I said pickle, not hiccup. I have just a couple of things to clear up. We were talking last week about, I just touched on it a little bit, about poppies and Remembrance Day and that sort of thing. And came across an awesome article which Diane forwarded to me, which I will just read out. Now, this was surprisingly in The Guardian, of all places. So, okay, here goes this article, which is great. At 9 p.m. last night, with a knock on the door of a 19-year-old man, Kent police hammered another nail into the coffin of free expression in the UK. Earlier in the day, the unnamed man from Aylsham had allegedly posted a photo of a poppy being burned, with a crudely worded and crudely spelled caption. He was arrested under the Malicious Communications Act and held in the cells overnight to await questioning. It is, of course, just the latest in a succession of police actions against individuals deemed to have caused offence, mocking a footballer as he fights for his life on Twitter, hoping British service personnel would die and go to hell, wearing a t-shirt that celebrates the death of 2 police officers, making sick jokes on Facebook about a missing child, the list goes on. A few months ago, these could have been dismissed as isolated overreactions or moments of madness by police or judiciary. Not any longer. It is now clear that a new criminal code has been imposed upon us without announcement or debate. It is now a crime to be offensive. We are not sleepwalking into a new totalitarianism. We have woken up to find ourselves tangled in its sheets. News of the arrest was first announced on Kent's police Twitter feed, William, and it didn't take long for users to spot the painful irony of the official avatar, which simply says Kent Police 101. The number is taken from the non-essential police phone number. As we all know, room 101 was where Winston Smith was taken in George Orwell's 1984 to be tortured and eventually persuaded to recant his individual beliefs and fall in line with officially sanctioned viewpoints. The Orwellian illusion inevitably fed countless suggestions that we are or are becoming a police state, a dictatorship, even a fascist society. Such allegations miss the point. They use a 20th century microscope to analyze a 21st century problem. The Orwellian model of tyranny was invariably nailed to a political propaganda, and the policing of thought crimes served only to protect and preserve the political elite or ideology. This is not what is happening in modern Britain. The new tyrant is not an oligarch or chief of secret police, but an amorphous, self-righteous tide of populist opinion that demands conformity to a strict set of moral values. What we are seeing has less to do with the Iron Hill than the pitchfork. Last month in Lancashire, a 20-year-old Matthew Woods posted some sick jokes about a missing child, April Jones. Almost instantly, his name and photo were being circulated with messages asking, "Who is this sick bastard?" Within hours, dozens of angry people were gathered outside the house that had wrongly been identified as his home. He was arrested elsewhere and 2 days later imprisoned for 28 days. No charges were brought or investigations made into those who were circulating direct threats against Woods, publishing his supposed address or potentially inciting a riot. Where was the real crime here? It should go without saying that throughout history there has rarely been an opinion of value that didn't cause outrage and offence to many. This is not to say there was any ethical value or political merit in any of the cases we've seen, but that is not the point. The precedent has been set. Few seem to appreciate how arbitrary and terribly dangerous this new tyranny of decency could quickly become. If Wood's jokes were so offensive, why were no charges brought against the newspapers and other media that reprinted them in full, thereby exposing them to an audience of millions? If yesterday's photo of a burning poppy is so hurtful, why are the police not banging at the door of Sonia Hundal, who instantly reprinted it on the Liberal conspiracy, or any of the thousands of us who have since shared it on social media? If Barry Hughes' t-shirt was so obscene, why did Sky News and countless other outlets immediately run a photo of it for everyone to ogle? If the ravings of the racist tram lady were so outrageous to public decency, why did millions of us send each other the link? The truth is not really the message, not the image, not the words that have been punished in any of these cases, but rather a refusal to conform to a tabloid-esque lowest common denominator of decency. Our political class, media, police and judiciary all cower to this, because they themselves fear the anger of the mob. In many ways, the new tune has less in common with Stalin or Mussolini than with grassroots fundamentalism, Puritanism, and vigilantism of the Taliban, transposed to a high-tech, secular, networked, postmodern society. How tragic that on Remembrance Sunday, when yet another British serviceman died fighting the very same oppression, we seem willing to surrender to the very same impulses at home. So yeah, I thought that was a surprisingly good article for The Guardian, and it links in with tonight's links in with tonight's topic as well. How we're policing ourselves now, and it's more through some phony baloney moralism or nationalism or patriotism, which brings me into a nice bit of audio which I found before we get stuck into the topic. This is George Carlin, Bill Hicks, and Doug Stanhope. This is me. You'll never hear me mention nationalism again. There's a lie. I'll probably mention it every week. But anyway, let this be my final statement on nationalism and patriotism. There it is. Okay, here we go. Enjoy. It ended rather abruptly, didn't it? Okay, yeah, that was just George Carlin, Bill Hicks, and Doug Stanhope there, just doing someone made a little compilation on the YouTubes, just about nationalism and why it's pretty ridiculous, which is something I hope we could all agree on. Okay, so right, just as a little caveat to last week's topic, which was time and the manipulation of time. There was just one little bit that I forgot to add on or missed off my notes because there was a gap and I didn't see it. Or something stupid like that. Anyway, there's just a little concept I just want to run by before we get into the topic, and this is time as a spiritual currency. I don't particularly like using the word spiritual, but so time is a form of true money because it's something we pay or spend. So there's two forms of true money or spiritual currency: time and attention. We spend time and pay attention. And depending on how we use that currency, we'll get different results. So if we pay attention to certain things, we'll get certain things as a result of that, be it knowledge or a better moral compass or something like that. If we spend our time doing things, we'll receive certain things as a result of that, reading or, performing right action in the world or speaking to people. This makes time a value and an important part of our lives. So if we spend it in frivolous pursuits or self-absorption, or spend it running away from ourselves or escaping life, or trying to get influence over others, or accumulating power, or accruing meaningless cash money for trinkets and status symbols that mean beggar all in the real world, or do we spend it trying to edify ourselves or educate ourselves about what's going on within and without? And you'll get two very, very, very different results depending on what you spend your time on and what you pay your attention to. And it can be work, but everything that's good in life begins with a bit of work. So, again, if we pay attention to the truth, our general suffering should dissipate and our lives will flow better. So, there you go. Well, just look at how many people spend their time watching TV and talent shows and, talk about it with their friends all the time, or moaning about others and getting caught up in the minutiae of life, wasting time, basically, killing time, waiting to die. Anyway, just a little caveat for last week that I should have added on and didn't. Okay, so the denial, hassle, ridicule factor, which is the the 11th method of mayhem, which I have. So this is 3 ways in which we self-police and ways that others use to ignore reality and control speech. Because the most fundamental weapon of culture is the control of speech. So history has shown, violent examples of this weapon. It exists in every culture. The object of the control of speech is making sure that those who are compelled to bend to the will of authority never gain the courage to look back. So it goes. Okay, hang on. So in order to maintain this obedience, culture demands that everyone it enslaves enforces its will on those around them. So it teaches people to call their neighbours who are, probably like mine do now, weird or insane. It demands that every person turn on those who disobey the precepts of culture, like we saw in the Poppy Burning article. Culture condemns as immoral and antisocial people who won't obey its precepts. So in this way, this is another form of culture, your cult. It shapes people's minds by restricting their speech. And furthermore, this culture lets its evangelists with using words like noble and upstanding. And those who most closely follow the rules of culture, especially in condemning enemies, in quotes, enemies, are rewarded for inflicting stigma on those less willing to obey. This is devaluation of the human spirit that is the evil of these cultural norms. So those who, like us on this station, I should imagine, who exhibit a rebellion against these authorities, are often ostracized, berated, or demonized, and it can be hard to be that person until you find other like-minded people. And this is how the control of speech is a weapon designed to break spirits, and it's a weapon that's designed to compel you to obedience. And once people of a culture begin to enforce the control of speech upon each other, this authority has been established, and it rules the people who enforce it. And this is the design of culture. And now authority can do with you whatever it wants. And so we end up acting as sheepdogs to, sometimes you're the sheep, sometimes you're the sheepdog, to other sheepy populations. And we do this on our own as a result of conditioning and programming. We do it to ourselves. We don't even necessarily need pressuring or forcing. This is one they whisper in our ears, this one, like most of them. Sort of imprisoning ourselves on our own volition. And we're not asking for a master to lock us up. We'll do it for them. We'll lock ourselves from this one. So these are the ways that we enslave ourselves even. And this is a great way to keep the truth suppressed and keep each other's fighting spirit suppressed. So, to keep you in a cage, a mental prison, or a spiritual, or definitely a physical prison. This is a great way to keep us there. And again, this is all of our own building. And we can talk about the manipulators and the dominators and the Illuminati and the New World Order. But when it comes to ones like this, they don't have any real power here. They just whisper in our ears. And yeah, they've got their techniques and the programs, and they're smart enough and unified enough to enact them. But it's us who buy them. And this one in particular is like that. We do this one to ourselves. And by giving our free will over to them and falling into low-level awareness or consciousness, their methods are a lot more effective on us. And it's us doing this to ourselves. So I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again. If you want to know who the real top-level dominator sorcerers are, right at the top of the pyramid, look in the mirror. That's who's doing it. We all do it to ourselves. And most people spend their lives refusing to acknowledge this or running away from it. But we're all collectively the sorcerer, especially when it comes to the denial, hassle, ridicule factor. And then, once we've made the leap and we start to climb the little ladder and start to wake up and see what's going on, then it's our responsibility to turn around and present this information to others and, give others a hand up. So, denial, hassle, ridicule is all about self-policing. And so first of all, denial. There's a lot of denial in the world. There's probably the strongest factor in the suppression of truth and what's really going on the planet. It's a psychological denial, and you could even say denial of a psychological illness. So when an organism that's got the ability to think comes under great stress and attack and suffering, it becomes too mentally, emotionally, and psychologically painful to acknowledge the suffering that they're in, so they go into a state of denial. And this could also be known as cognitive dissonance, which is a term used in modern psychology to describe the state of people when holding two or more conflicting cognitions, so ideas, beliefs, values, emotions, they hold them simultaneously. In a state of dissonance, people may sometimes feel surprise, dread, guilt, anger, or embarrassment. The theory of cognitive dissonance in social psychology proposes that people have a motivational drive to reduce dissonance by altering existing cognitions, adding new ones to create a consistent belief system, whether it fits or not. Alternatively, by reducing the importance of any one of the dissonant elements, which is the denial, denying its importance, is the distressing mental state that people feel when they find themselves doing things that don't fit with what they know, or having opinions that don't fit with other opinions they hold. So a key assumption being that people want their expectations to meet reality and create a sense of equilibrium. So an example of this would be, what this is me is, a conflict between wanting to smoke but knowing that smoking is unhealthy. So I'm aware that that's a cognitive dissonance in me, and bargain it off by saying, well, I smoke rolling tobacco, which is far more healthy because there's no chemicals and formaldehyde and all that stuff. And it's still pretty bad. Although I do believe that pure cut tobacco, people have been smoking that for God knows how long. So yeah, cognitive dissonance. Phrase was made by a psychologist called Leon Festinger, who he wrote a book called The Theory of Cognitive Dissonance, and that outlines the main theory of it. And it's still a popular theory in psychology today. It's basically, if you realize that your surroundings in life are sort of sync with what you think they should be, and that the person's lying to themselves, and this is a defense mechanism of the psyche. And it's one that if we hold on to it for too long, on an individual level and a species-wide level, we're causing destruction by ignoring the causal factors. So again, denial is used here when referring to addicts. It's self-destructive, both with a small S person and a capital S, the collective self. Right, cognitive dissonance. Why do people get into this state? I mean, problems in this world are pretty clear, especially, I'm going to say even to a child, but probably especially to a child, as I've got written here. So why do people get into this state of denial? Basically, fear. They've chosen fear as their main modality of consciousness. It's easy to deny or ignore reality rather than confront it. Because if you confront a problem, that means you've assumed personal responsibility for it. Because you've acknowledged the problem exists, and you're saying, okay, I've recognized this problem's present, I want to change it. So no one wants to be ill or sick from addiction or being enslaved. Everyone would want happiness or freedom. But there are requirements to get these things. And if we take steps that create the opposite of what we want, then all we'll get are more problems. So just a quote from 1984, which is, by the time I've finished doing most of these shows, not that I'll probably finish anytime soon, you know what I mean? I expect I will have quoted all of 1984 at some point or another. So a couple of quotes that explain doublethink. I'm sure you've all read 1984. So this is a form of doublethink. To know and not to know. To be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies, told simultaneously two opinions which cancelled out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in both of them. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while laying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy. To forget whatever it was necessary to forget, and then to draw it back into memory again at the moment when it was needed, and then promptly to forget it again. And above all, to apply the same process to the process itself. That was ultimate subtlety, consciously to induce unconsciousness, and then once again to become unconscious of the act of hypnosis you had just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involved the use of doublethink. And the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. To tell deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them. To forget any fact that has become inconvenient, and then, when it becomes necessary again, to draw back from oblivion for just as long as it's needed to deny the existence of objective reality, and all the while to take account of the reality which one denies. All this is indispensably necessary. Even in using the word doublethink, it is necessary to exercise doublethink, for by using the word, one admits that one is tampering with reality. By a fresh act of doublethink, one erases this knowledge, and so on, indefinitely, with the lie always one leap ahead of the truth. So again, find the causal problem, assume personal responsibility, find the problem, imagine change, and take measures to reverse the causal factors. Acknowledging there's a problem is the escape from the doublethink there, and also don't add the same polarity that created the problem in the first place. You remember I used the analogy once of someone who was trying to dry their clothes by using a hose pipe and convincing themselves that if they just keep doing this, those clothes will eventually be dry. It doesn't work like that. Or someone who tries to put out a kitchen fire with more fire, it doesn't work. Einstein said no problem can ever be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. So if fear created the problem, fear can never undo it. So if you're in denial because of fear, you can't escape your denial with more fear. So denial fixes nothing, ignorance and fear. It's the willing refusal of the truth, and it's self-destructive every time. So, as we know, the opposite of fear is the expansive consciousness known as love. Not romantic love, but, expansive love. And that's the desire to seek truth. And that's what dissipates denial. Truth leads to knowledge, and that's where we make our diagnosis. And as we know from the Greek, diag, through, and gnosis, knowledge. So knowledge and truth are in the polarity of love. So if we need to, the first step is conquering this denial. So we need to conquer fear, make a decision through love to turn our attention towards the root cause factors of the problems, and then once we find them, we can act appropriately, and we can take the appropriate action in the world, which is the sacred masculine. And if we ignore the problem and we're in denial, we'll never start even on the road to this truth. Okay, so that's just a bit on denial there, so I will stick a song on, have a sip of cranberry juice, and maybe smoke a healthy cigarette. Okay, let's see what shall I play. I got 4 songs this week for some reason, because I didn't put them up early enough. Okay, here's a song. This is a bit of an angry song about war and fighting for freedom. Again, it's pretty hard to find songs that fit this topic, so I've just picked songs that I like at the moment. Indeed, it's the conference. It is but next week, so get your tickets if you haven't got them. It is but a tenner. Get yourself down and we'll all have a bit of a chat. Right, so denial, hassle, ridicule factor. So, ridicule, which I can imagine is something you've all come across when trying to present these ideas to people. And I normally find that there are 3 types of people, or 3 types of responses you get when you're trying to just, crack a door for someone. You'll either get people who've got absolutely no idea about any of this at all, but will be at least interested enough or have enough, thirst for knowledge, or they'll ask more questions of you, and you can sort of set them off on a little bit of a trek for them, like a curiosity. Like they acknowledge that they don't know what's going on, but they always have that, a feeling sort of thing, but they don't know what it's about. And that's the beginning of all knowledge. The words I don't know. The Socrates, wise is he who knows he knows nothing. And they're powerful words, I don't know, and that's how you start yourself on the track, by admitting that you don't know. And that can be nice. There's a girl at work, and we're just potting around at the bar the other day, and she said, "What do you know about the Freemasons?" So I, sort of give her a sideways, so quite a lot. I know quite a lot about the Freemasons. Why? She's like, "Oh, my boyfriend's dad's a Freemason." I just thought it was a bit weird. What's all that about? So I, explained a bit about what Freemasonry was, and she looked horrified. I said, he's probably not a top-level Freemason occultist, he's probably, just dresses funny and has funny handshakes, and probably thinks that they're just doing this all for charity. Let's not get into the thing of thinking that all Freemasons are involved in the scam, because they're not. Anyway, and then the other type of people who've got a little bit of knowledge, or they've certainly progressed through suspicion. If they're through denial, but they don't really know what to do with it, and they'll be very receptive. And if they find out that you know about this stuff, they'll bombard you with questions and throw everything at you, and you'll get messages from them every day in emails and calls. "Oh, I've just seen this, what do you think this means?" And, "Oh, I saw this symbol on the telly, what do you think that means?" And that's great as well. I like, I've got a few people who sort of are like that with me now, and I find that really, I like helping them, because it's easy to get sent down whirlpools of disinformation when you're coming into this stuff, especially a lot of the Christian bullshit that's out there. And it's also important to not chuck them in at the deep end. That's pretty good. And then of course you get the other people who, if they hear you talking of this, or if you try and mention this to them, they'll smirk and laugh at you, and think they know it all, and they've got a certain disdain for learning something new. And again, this is another fear-based reaction. They won't even listen to what you're saying, because you're just one of them tinfoil hatters, and they'll ridicule what you're saying with no knowledge or research, or seem to think that they know what it's all about. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, so the saying goes. That was Einstein as well. So if something's not in their repertoire of knowledge, they don't want to know. they don't think it's necessary to take in any more information. And I was there when I came out of university, and I thought I was the dog's bollocks and that, and I've got a degree in political science, so you can't tell me anything about politics that I don't know. And of course that was nonsense. I had no idea. I was stuck in the left-right paradigm, but that's the. Yeah, and so if someone had brought this to me, and they did a couple of times, and I was like, oh, come on, go over, there's far more socio-economic aspects, and I don't really believe there's all this. And then I was wrong. There you go, I was wrong. And I didn't know, and I sort of, when it all came together a bit, I was like, oh, right, yeah, and I started to see the patterns, and then it all sort of came together. And, but yeah, for a long time, I was definitely edging toward it, but I never took the leap, sort of thing. But that's how dare you not sit back and be a good little slave, and people get angry sometimes when you say this stuff, not for our nation's glorious beliefs, and how dare you challenge this, and ignorance and freedom are directly opposed to each other. Anyway, sorry. So ridicule. I found a great little passage in David Icke's book about when he was asked to participate in a TV show on Channel 4 called Who's Ruling the World? The program was made for young people by the channel's education department to broadcast to schools and colleges, and about how young people mistrust government or authority in general. Anyway, as part of this program, David Icke went to meet a psychology academic called Chris French, who's some BA, PhD, it says BA, PhD, CT Psychol, FBSS, FRSA. So yeah, must be intelligent, from Goldsmith College in London. So French had produced some astonishing research, to quote David Icke. He found that his colleagues questioned people about conspiracy theories, and this is what they found: that those who trust authority are less likely to believe in conspiracies, and those who distrust authority are more likely to believe in conspiracies. So, okay, going to quote David Icke now. Ain't academia great? How would we survive without these guys? Anyone with a brain could have told them before they even started. If you don't trust authority, you're going to be more open to claims that they are lying than if you think authority is benign and only here to serve the best interests of the people. As I said to French in our exchange on the program, the point is not who will or will not believe in a conspiracy view of world events. The question is this: are the conspiracy claims true and supportable by the evidence? In short, is the conspiracy happening or isn't it? This, however, is too simple and direct for the concrete end of academia, which, in my experience, is very long indeed. Never mind the evidence, it must be something in people's psyches that gets them to believe in conspiracies. After all, the conspiracies can't be true because we don't believe in them. So let's have a survey and dissipate up our own answers, poring over the obvious, and let's forget these irrelevant details like whether the conspiracy is happening or not. Chris French told me the survey had found that those who believed in conspiracy theories were more likely to be delusional than those who didn't believe in them. The psychiatric definition of delusional is a false belief strongly held in spite of invalidating evidence, especially as a symptom of mental illness, delusions of persecution. Okay then, how come that no conspiracy theorists are not considered delusional when they believe that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, just because those in authority told them this was the case? But you see, not to believe in conspiracies is more credible to academia because it supports the establishment version of events. It's like believing in extraterrestrial life. The idea that life as we know it has only evolved on this tiny planet and nowhere else in the perceived vastness of space is considered credible because that's the establishment's view that people like Chris French are there to serve. As a result, he believes that there is no other life out there is considered As a result, to believe that there has to be other life out there is considered delusional. He believes in little green men and all that crap. There is no better example of this phenomena I call reverse credibility than the Islamic hijackers theory about 9/11. It is credible to believe that 19 hijackers who failed or struggled to fly one engineered Cessna could suddenly manifest the ability to fly massive airliners with the most extraordinary skill. But to say that claim is clearly nonsense is a conspiracy theory that attracts dismissal from people like French. He was trying to defend the official 9/11 story during our chat, including the hijacker pilots who couldn't fly still flew 767 theory. I asked him for his definition of delusional with regard to his survey, and he said it was those who answered yes to questions like, do you think that everyone is being tracked by their mobile phones? Once again, whether they are not is never addressed by French. Interpretation of the answer matters. The fact that everyone can be tracked by their cell phone, and many are when most are being particularly targeted, I don't believe that everyone is, because most people have no problem to authority, and so there is no point. However, to believe that it might be happening when surveillance is increased by the day is now considered delusional. French doesn't know if the statement is true or false, but he believes it to be false, and so anyone who thinks it might be going on must be delusional. After all, he can't be wrong. French told me there was no evidence for what I was saying in my books about a global conspiracy to impose an Orwellian state. I asked him the obvious question: have you read any of my books? His answer was no. This is absolutely typical of his breed, and I've met so many of these academic clones who parrot their slog sheet science and strong sheet psychology. They are not interested in evidence, only their own theories. Indeed, they are no conspiracy theorists who never bother to check out the validity of what has been claimed by actually researching the evidence. I said I couldn't take him seriously anymore when he was saying on one hand that there was no evidence, and yet not even bothering to read one of my books to see what evidence was being presented. I knew you would take that line, he said. Well, what other line is there to take in these circumstances? If someone had rigid views on what it's like to travel by train when they had never been near a railway station, people like French would say they had psychological flaws, yet that's exactly what he and his colleagues do. They have concrete opinions without a cursory look at the evidence and accuse people of being delusional or for believing in something when, in unresearched opinion of people like Chris French, there is no evidence. They are looking themselves in the mirror, and they are too full of their own importance to see it. When I challenged French about dismissing evidence that he hadn't even bothered to read, he said he knew what I was saying from articles he'd read in the media. Given that we're talking about one of the most misrepresented people of recent times, I had to laugh at the idea that anyone could find out what I was really saying, and with what evidence from the news media. But then, for the moment I began talking with the guy, I knew he was in fairyland. He told me that my work was based on a document called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which he claimed was a proven fake. I asked him how he knew that my books were based on that. He said he'd read it in the papers. The fact that this was provable nonsense, as a reader put in my books would immediately confirm, was once again irrelevant to him. What I found most fascinating was to see that no conspiracy theorist acted precisely the same way he claims those conspiracy theorists that he so dismisses. He says that people believe in conspiracy without any evidence, yet he believes there is no conspiracy without looking at the evidence. He says that conspiracy theorists make everything fit their theory, yet he was constantly trying to find a way to make everything fit his no conspiracy theory. So, yeah. Yeah, so it goes on for another couple of pages, but I won't read them all out. And because I have one more little teeny tiny quote, this one's only a titler, from the same book, and it says, actually no, that doesn't fit now, so I'm going to wait for that. Okay, so yeah, this ridicule of conspiracy theorists, and how this ridicule factor will stop many people from speaking up. Excuse me. But as Mr. Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So this idea that, people they've conquered the first fear of denial, and they've made the leap, and they've learned some things, but then they think to themselves, oh, I'd rather stay silent and actually start to bring these things up that might make people uncomfortable and, maybe challenge a preconceived idea, or they might fall out with me because they think I'm a crazy person now, or that it's tinfoil hat area, more, in fear of what other people think of you. And that's, again, fear. So I did a little Googling, and I found some great articles about why conspiracy theorists, and all conspiracy theorists, are idiots. So I'm not sure where I got this from, actually, but anyway. So this is one I found. Conspiracy theorists, also known as conspiraloons, tinfoil hatters, loon spuds, fruit and nut jobs. Note from editor. Because of the high-profile nature of the external link bulletin boards, we often suffer obsessive conspiracy theorists or guffaw truth seekers, filling up the boards with fact-free claims, evident, untroubled epilogues, and vast realms of tedious cut and paste. We hope this will be useful for you if you encounter a conspiraloon on these message boards. 10 characteristics of conspiracy theorists. A useful guide by Donna Fuentes. 1. Arrogance. They are always fact seekers. Questioners, people who are trying to discover the truth. Skeptics are always sheep. Patsies, Formetters, Bush and Blair, etc. Yeah, that's true, actually, pretty arrogant. 2. Relentless. They will go on and on about a conspiracy no matter how little evidence they have to go on or how much of what they have is simply discredited. Moreover, as per one above, you listen to them 98 times, 99 times will say no thanks, and you'll be called a sheep again. They go on and on at an enormous length. Well, yeah, that's kind of half true, but hang on, no matter how little evidence they have to go on, or how much is simply discredited, it depends which aspect you're talking about, but there's reams of evidence, absolutely reams of evidence, and if something's said simply discredited, then you've got to follow that back and say discredited by who. So if someone says that a flu shot is safe, look at who said it, find out if they were paid off, and find out who they work for. Oh, yeah, anyway. Number 3, the inability to answer questions. For people who loudly advertise their determination to the principle of questioning everything, they're pretty poor at answering direct questions from skeptics about the claims that they make. That's absolute bullshit. Ask me anything, I will probably be able to find an answer if I don't have one to hand. Number 4, fondness for certain stock phrases. These include Cicero's Cui Bono, of which it can be said that Cicero understood the importance of having evidence to back it up, and Conan Doyle's once we've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however unlikely, it must be the truth. What these phrases have in common is that they attempt to absolve themselves from any responsibility to produce positive, hard evidence themselves. You simply eliminate the impossible, i.e. say the official account can't stand scrutiny, which means the wild allegation of your choice based on Cui Bono, which is always the government, is therefore the truth. Number 5, and may I point out, in direct contradiction to number 4, inability to employ or understand Occam's razor. Aided by the principle in 4, conspiracy theorists never notice that the small inconsistencies in the accounts which they reject are dwarfed by the enormous gaping hole in logic, likelihood, and evidence of any alternative account. What absolute bullshit. I forget who was arguing. Someone was arguing, the 9/11 thing with someone who was just, no, it was terrorist. No, it was terrorist. No, it was no, it wasn't. It was a terrorist. And their response was, well, look, you just got to use Occam's razor in this situation. But I think that if you apply Occam's razor, then it's still vastly more unlikely that these terrorists perpetrated 9/11. That's using Occam's razor. I'm not saying we don't use Occam's razor. That's what the trivium's all about. We'll get into the trivium when we get into solutions and that. But yeah, anyway. So number 6, inability to tell. Excuse me. Inability to tell good evidence from bad. Conspiracy theorists have no place for peer review, for scientific knowledge, for the respectability of sources. The fact that a claim has been made by anybody else anywhere is good enough for them to produce it and demand that the question it raises be answered, as if any intellectual inquiry were a matter of responding to every rumour. While they do this, of course, they will claim to have open minds and abuse skeptics for apparently lacking the same. Conspiracies have no place for peer review, for scientific... Right, but this is the point. Peer review sheets and the scientific community, they're all part of an establishment that's... Right, yeah, okay. Good evidence would be logically sound, that's fair enough, and provable, absolutely. But that doesn't necessarily have to come from from a university or from a world-renowned scientist or anything. What's the difference? If a tramp could prove to me something, I would take that as truth as much as I would take it as truth from a scientist. I don't know. Anyway, number 7, inability to withdraw. It's a rare day indeed when a conspiracy theorist admits that a claim they have made has turned out to be without foundation, whether it be the overall claim itself or any of the evidence produced to support it. It's more likely they have a liking for the technique of avoiding discussion of their claims by piling on a whole lot more material rather than respond to the objections skeptics make to the previous one. Number 8, leaping to conclusions. Conspiracy theorists are very keen indeed to declare the official accounts totally discredited without having remotely enough cause to do so. Of course, this enables them to wheel on Conan Doyle's quote, as in 4 above. Small inconsistencies in the account of events, small unanswered questions, small problems in timing of differences in procedure from previous events of the same kind are all more than adequate to declare the official account clearly and definitively discredited. It goes without saying that it is not necessary to prove that these inconsistencies are either relevant or that they even definitely exist. Not much to say about that, mostly the nonsense. Number 9, using previous conspiracies as evidence to support their claims. This argument evokes scandals like the Birmingham 6, the Bologna station bombings, the Zinoviev letter, and so on, in order to try and demonstrate that their conspiracy theories should be accorded some weight because it's happened before. They do not pause to reflect the conspiracies they are touting are almost far more unlikely and complicated than the real-life conspiracies which make comparison. Number 10. It's always a conspiracy, and it is, isn't it? No sooner has the body been discovered, the bomb gone off, then the same people are producing the same old stuff, demanding that there must be questions which need to be answered at the same time unbearable length. Because the most important thing about these people is that they are people of entirely lacking discrimination. They cannot tell a good theory from a bad one, and they cannot tell good evidence from bad evidence, and they cannot tell a good source from a bad one. And for that reason, they will come up with the same answer, and they ask the same question. A person who always says the same thing and says it over and over again is, of course, commonly considered to be, if not monomaniac, at the very least, a bore. Right, there you go. That's all about they're talking about. And then it goes on to the Wikipedia Conspiracy Theory Guide. 1. Initiated on the basis of limited, partial, or circumstantial evidence. Conceived in reaction to media reports and images as opposed to, for example, a thorough knowledge of the relevant forensic evidence. 2. Addresses an event or process that has broad historical or emotional impact. 3. Reduces morally complex social phenomena to simple immoral actions. 4. Personifies complex social phenomena as powerful individual conspirators. 5. Allots superhuman talents or resources to conspirators. 6. Key steps in argument rely on inductive, not deductive reasoning. 7. Exhibits well-established logical and methodological fallacies, which I will get into in a bit, logical fallacies. 8. Is produced and circulated by outsiders, often anonymous, and generally lacking peer review. 9. Is upheld by persons with demonstrably false concepts of relevant science. 10. Enjoys zero credibility in expert communities. 11. Rebuttals provided by experts are ignored or accommodated through elaborate new twists in the narrative. So, okay, there you go. I've got another couple of these people, basically. Oh, no, hang on, this is a quick one. This is my absolute favourite. This is from an article brilliantly titled, Why Conspiracy Believers Are Idiots. It is common sense why conspiracy believers are such fucktards. 1. No experience in what they talk about. JFK is the perfect example of idiots and loons who say they have the answers, but not a single day in their miserable life have they ... 1. Fired a weapon. 2. Being a law enforcement officer, because you can do that for a day. 3. Have had any knowledge in ballistics. 4. Use the rifle scope. 2. Political bias. Conspiracy loons have a clear political bias which clouds their reasoning. 3. They have an ingrained hatred of the United States. Conspiracy loons show a rabid hate of the United States and all its institutions, thus their judgment sucks. 4. They have a monetary stake in the conspiracy. Conspiracy loons, professional idiots, have a monetary stake in maintaining the conspiracy, which renders their judgment nil, which is spelled incorrectly. That was my favourite one, by the way. I know it's like obviously some 15-year-old. I just thought it was quite funny. So there you go, bit of ridicule there. I got more of these great ones coming up. Let me stick a song on though, because I'm getting my coughs back on. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. We've had a chat before on this show a little bit about Alex Jones, and I actually think he's kind of alright. I think he's a bit of a temp pitcher, and he won't go quite as far as he could do because he's stuck in the Christian camp a bit. And is he fear-mongering? Yes, he is. But you've just got to be discerning with him, because the things he's saying sometimes, most of the time, are absolutely true. Is he trying to make people angry and, is he trying to fight fear with fear? Yeah, possibly. But that doesn't mean that his evidence isn't good. So anyway, this is, I've got a bit of audio here from, it's become known as the Austin incident. And he was at a comedy club watching Doug Stanhope, who we had on earlier. And Doug Stanhope's an Alex Jones fan, and he asked him if he would introduce him. And what happens is that Alex goes on a 10-minute rant trying to fit, 15 years of research into 10 minutes and starts screaming at people, and then people get up in his face and challenge him or a fight, and everyone starts screaming, and then it'll stop. But this is great. But this is sort of this is our poster boy for conspiracies, I'm afraid, sometimes. And again, I like Alex, but geez, he does do some yelling, doesn't he? Okay, here we go. I love that clip. Watch it on YouTube. The Austin incident is great. He's in the crowd, like standing over this guy, just yelling at him. Jeez, I called you a punk. Brilliant. I mean, I'll tell you what. If it ever comes to fisticuffs, I want to be on Alex's side there. Yeah, Alex, you're right. Whatever you want, mate. There's a really interesting interview where Doug Stanhope's actually been interviewed by Alex Jones. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Google it, it's awesome. Actually, I was quite surprised that actually fit in, because that guy who's like, you don't want to know the truth, you can't handle the truth. That was great. Anyway, sorry, I digress again. Okay, so, talking about ridicule, and how people don't want to stand up and say they spotted the patterns because they'll get mocked by such luminaries as the ones I was reading out before. If you just Google conspiracy theory, there's loads of these lists. Top 10 conspiracy theories. And there was one from the Telegraph, and this was great. Number 1, 9/11. Thanks to the power of web and live broadcast on television, the conspiracy theories surrounding the events of 9/11, when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon in Washington. By the way, this is meant to be unbiased journalism, and it says the events of 9/11, and then it says, as a fact, when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon in Washington, by the way, have surpassed those of Roswell and JFK in traction. Despite repeated claims by Al-Qaeda that it planned, organized, and orchestrated the attack, several official and unofficial investigations into the collapse of the Twin Towers, which concluded that structural failure was responsible, and footage of the events themselves, the conspiracy theories continue to grow in strength. So, again, it's just accepting the official line there without looking at the evidence that's been presented. At the milder end of the spectrum are the theorists who believe that the US government had prior warning the attack but did not do enough to stop them. Others believe that the Bush administration deliberately turned a blind eye to those warnings because it wanted a pretext to launch wars in the Middle East and to usher another century of American hegemony. A large group of people, collectively called the 9/11 Truth Movement, which I don't recall being, being brought under that umbrella, but never mind, cites evidence that an airliner did not hit the Pentagon and the World Trade Center could not have been brought down by airliner impacts and burning aviation fuel alone. This final group points to video evidence which they claim shows puffs of smoke, so-called demolition squibs, so-called by the way, emerging from the Twin Towers at levels far below the aircraft impact zones and prior to the collapses. They also believe on the day itself, the US Air Force was deliberately stood down or sent on exercises to present intervention that could have saved the lives of nearly 2,000 people. Okay, just a couple of points in there. Cite evidence that the airliner did not cite evidence that an airliner did not hit the Pentagon and the World Trade Center could not be brought down by airliner impacts or burning fuel alone. Okay, what is this evidence then? Why haven't you looked at that? Because it can't have done. It doesn't make sense. The final group points to videos which the claim shows puffs of smoke. It's not just a video where you can point it and go, oh, there's a squib of smoke. There was a structural architect who said, no, that's a controlled demolition, definitely. And, I think there's even a group, architects for 9/11 Truth or something like that. It's not just that we're all sitting around, looking at screens, oh, look at that must be this. And no, the research has been done. And they also believe that on the day itself, the US Air Force was deliberately stood down or sent on exercises to prevent intervention. The US Air Force was on an exercise. They were on vigilant guard exercise and they weren't there. That's not a belief. That's in, documents and everything. Anyway. And what's the time? Many witnesses, including firemen, policemen, and people who were inside the towers at the time, claimed to have heard explosions below the aircraft impact and before both the collapse of the attacks themselves. As with the assassination of JFK, the official inquiry into the events of 9/11 is widely derided by the conspiracy community and held up as further evidence that 9/11 was an inside job. Scientific journals have consistently rejected these hypotheses. Of course they have. Okay, the number 5 on this great list was entitled The Illuminati and the New World Order. A conspiracy in which powerful and secretive groups, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg Group, and other shadowy cabals, are plotting to rule mankind with a single world government. Many historical events are said to have been engineered by these groups with one goal, the New World Order. These groups use political, finance, social engineering, mind control, and fear-based propaganda to achieve their aims. Signs of the NWO are said to be the pyramid on the reverse of the Greats of the United States, strange and distilled meals at Denver International Airport, and pentagrams in city plans. International organizations such as the World Bank, the IMF, the European Union, the United Nations, NATO are listed as founding organizations of the New World Order. Okay, interestingly, all that stuff's actually pretty true. Yes, I've got my tinfoil hat on, but you can just see the level of research that this writer's done with the sentence, signs of the NWO are said to be the pyramid on the reverse of the Great of the United States and mules at Denver International Airport. Okay, so if you haven't seen the Denver International Airport, just go and look at some pictures of it and you tell me what's going on. That's all. You tell me. And those who laugh at, the Bilderberg group, conspiracy theorists, what are they doing there? And why is it never publicized? All these high-level bankers and politicians, what are they doing there, and why is it never published, and why do we never find out what they're talking about? Are they just having a nice dinner? And Bohemian Grove as well, like, okay, I could be wrong about all this, I suppose, So what are they doing in Bohemian Grove? What are they doing in the Northern Californian redwoods, Newt Gingrich and the Bushes and the Clintons? What are they doing there in their robes? Proven, this isn't based on, frivolous second-hand knowledge. What are they doing there? I've seen the video. It's on YouTube of them in their robes worshipping a giant owl called Moloch and creating an effigy of a child and burning it at the foot of the owl. And, all right, so maybe even if it's not an occultic seance, the cremation of care ritual, which it is, by the way, but even if it wasn't that, you tell me then, what are they doing there? Am I crazy for asking that? Does that make me crazy, wondering why they're running around with torches, burning effigies of children at the foot of a giant owl? And I'm the crazy one for asking what they're doing. And, oh no, they don't do that. Yes, they do that. You can see them do it. Okay, number 7, Diana, Princess of Wales, murdered. Why won't this one go away? Despite an official inquiry that found no evidence of a plot by M16 or any other entity to murder the princess and Dirty Fired, fevered speculation continues. The theory is that rogue elements in the British Secret Service decided that Diana's relationship with Fired was a threat to the monarchy and therefore the British state. A plot was hatched in which the white female owner carrying agents was sent to blind and disorientate driver Henry Paul as he sped through Paris underpass and pursued by photographers. Later, Paul's blood was switched with a sample of someone else who drunk a lot of alcohol. The trouble with this theory, there's not a shred of evidence to support it, apart from all the evidence. So, there you go. Right, so that's enough of looking at people, laughing at people who are actually looking at these things. Which brings me on to logical fallacies, which they claim the conspiracy theorists use, but I would claim that others use. So, hang on a second, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, there's 24 identified. So there's straw man logical fallacy, which is excuse me, misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. I think we've just done a few examples of that. Then we've got false cause, which is presuming that a real or perceived relationship between things means that one is the cause of the other. Okay, a lot of conspiracy douchebags do that. And don't get me wrong, there are some real dicks in the conspiracy movements who are way off course. But, let's not get that. Okay. Appeal to emotion. Manipulating an emotional response in place of a valid or compelling argument. Yep. Ad hominem. Attacking your opponent's character or personal traits instead of engaging with their argument. Which, yeah, I'm sure we've all come across, and which David Icke comes across a lot as well. That must be false because he's a conspiracy nut. There you go. Slippery slope. Asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z will consequently happen. Therefore, A should not be allowed to happen. The fallacy. Presuming that because a claim has been presuming that because a claim has been poorly argued or a fallacy has been made, then it's necessarily wrong. Tu quoque. Avoiding having to engage with criticism by turning it back on the accuser, answering criticism with criticism. We all come across that one a lot, I'm sure. Personal incredulity. Saying that because one finds something difficult to understand, that it's not therefore true. God, excuse me. That's also linked in with ignorance and just not having the balls or the wherewithal to stand up and look into things for yourself. Special pleading, moving the goalposts or making up exceptions when a claim is shown to be false. Ambiguity, using double meanings or ambiguities of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. See 9/11 Commission there, by the way. Burden of proof, saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove. Loaded question, asking a question that has a presumption built in so that it can't be answered without appearing guilty. The gambler's fallacy, believing that runs occur to statistically independent phenomena such as roulette wheel spins. Bandwagon, appealing to the popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation. Appeal to authority, using the opinion or position of an authority figure or institution of authority in place of an actual argument. That's, for example, citing a study that comes from Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Harvard, whatever, as being the definitive, even though there might be equally well researched or proved or even better provable studies found in other places. Genetic, judging something good or bad on the basis of where it comes from or from whom it comes. No true Scotsman, making what could be called an appeal to purity as a way to dismiss relevant criticisms or flaws of an argument. The Christian conspiracies are good at that one. Composition division, assuming that what's true about one part of something has to be applied to all or other parts of it. For example, you're a conspiracy theorist, all conspiracies are douchebags, so you're a douchebag. Black or white, where two alternative states are presented as the only possibilities, when in fact more possibilities exist. Begging question, a circular argument in which the conclusion is included in the premise. Appeal to nature, making the argument that just because something is natural it is therefore valid, justified, inevitable, or better. Which, to be fair, I do. Middle ground, saying that a compromise or middle point between two extremities is the truth. Do you remember I was saying about if you had someone on saying that you should eat a bowl full of bees every morning? Like, well, obviously you shouldn't, but if you're going for the middle ground, you should eat some bees? I don't know. Again, logical fallacy. The Texas sharpshooter, cherry-picking data clusters to suit an argument or finding a pattern to fit a presumption. Now, yeah, you could point this finger at the conspiracy theorists, but you could also point it equally the other way and still use Occam's razor and work out which was more likely or not. Anecdotal, using personal instead of valid argument, especially to dismiss statistics. So, yeah, if they're accusing conspiracy theorists, quote, of using logical fallacies, they are used equally, if not more so, against those who espouse these conspiracies. Alright, let me stick a song on. I'm getting grumpy with people getting grumpy, which is a weird, backwards way of doing things. Okay, let's do the Mountain Goat song that I play every week. So this is a song called Spent Gladiator 2, and it's quite lovely. Try and listen to the lyrics, they are most insightful. I just put a link up, by the way, to the Sinister Side section of Vigilant Citizen, which is a great read if you get a chance. So yeah, right, what was I banging on about? Ridicule and logical fallacies and these sort of things, and how this is a low state of consciousness to be in if you're in fear of another person's opinion of you. You know, you need to smash through that barrier if you believe in what you're saying, really. Again, it's a barrier that you built for yourselves. And, you know, how many people do you think, because sometimes you'll bring this stuff up by accident and you'll find out that someone else thinks like this. Like, well, we've known each other for years, how come you've never mentioned it? So, well, you know, you sound crazy, don't you? And then when you get into these circles like we are here on Critical Mass, you sort of get a skewed version then of how many people know about this stuff. Because we spend a lot of time talking about it with each other and in chat rooms and, you know, on Facebook even, these sort of things. But really, it's very, very few people. And, you know, you could use that as evidence that it's nonsense, but we know it not to be. And the truth is spoken into existence, as I said before, and I probably will do many more times. If we're in fear of speaking, we won't speak that truth into existence. So this is from my favourite little book, The End of All Evil. Voice is a principle of intelligence. Voice is the highest form of communication between beings of the highest intelligence. The passion and feeling that people are able to put behind their words can change lives and change worlds. The few who have achieved a glimpse of the power of voice bring either insane destruction or awesome freedom. Every great and terrible culture brought into the world was brought by the principle of voice. Every rebellion and revolution that destroyed cultures and empires was brought by the power of voice. Men who understood the principle of voice have irrevocably altered our world. The principle of voice is found in every element of human communication. Writing and books are lesser forms of human voice. Every transfer of words contains the power to change lives. When accompanied by the passion of life, voice alone has the power to free worlds. The principle of voice explains why freedom is a function of population. As population increases, it is more difficult for culture to maintain control over the speech of people. The more people communicate with one another, the quicker they learn their own value. Population increase brings increased freedom to the world because of the power of voice. When people are unfettered by the chains of culture, and when they do not believe the lie that they are powerless, they can change everything. To change the world, you must have faith that you have such ability in yourself. You must open your mouth and speak. The principle of voice is the passion to convince, the passion to teach, and the passion to create faith. It will strengthen you, and should you choose to use it, you will change lives. Use our courage to break down that divide, that barrier to truth. So yeah, there you go. And this is why, again, God. 2 months I've had a cough. Jeez. This is why the dominators are so successful, because they never stop speaking, and they never stop speaking and showing their view of reality. And they've even got a little device that they put in almost everyone's home, called a TV, of course, a television, and that device does it 24/7. And they're always using the voice, and they're not divided, and that's why they're successful, because they're united, and we're not. We spend a lot of time, moaning and complaining and studying minutiae and stuff. We should all just stand up and turn our backs, and then they've got no power left. There's this one overarching mastermind, and that's how they do it, because they think and feel and act in unison, so their desires are manifested. And we're in fractured consciousness, and that's why we're not getting what we want. So you need courage and knowledge. You need to do it because it's the right thing to do. Whether you're going to, once you've conquered denial, you've got to conquer ridicule. That's why I like someone like David Icke. I mean, again, we talk about him on here sometimes, and do we like him, do we not like him? But I'll tell you what, he's got balls, especially since the early 90s. He stood up and he said what he thinks. He said it over and over, and he doesn't care what anyone thought of him. We need more people in the world like that. So that's what this whole denial, hassle, ridicule fact has been all about. The denial's the fear of thinking, the ridicule's the fear of speaking, and then the hassle is the fear of acting. Because the hassle one is people they don't want to put themselves out there for hassle, so they don't want to go on a protest or something like that, or they don't want to go handing out flyers if they haven't got a license, because that you can be enacted with violence, or they can be arrested for these sorts of things. So people back off and won't accept it because they could get hassled. They don't want to have to stand up to an authority figure in the physical, in the physical world. So that's the denial, hassle, ridicule. They've got your fear of learning, your fear of speaking through ridicule, and your fear of acting. And those who know and don't act because of their fear, that's a complete abdication of personal responsibility, especially if you're in a state of awareness of it, and that's cowardice. That's what that is. We need to stand up and speak the truth. And non-action in awareness is a hassle-free zone, and that's not good enough. And you can never say you didn't know. And if you're doing that, if you're not out there speaking or standing up for yourself, you might as well go and hang out in the Northern California redwoods and wear a robe and hang out with Bush and Gingrich and pray to Moloch and cremate your car, because you've already done it. Okay, that's going to wrap things up for this week, I believe. Next week, I'm going to start getting into religion, as it's known, which means in Latin to tie back or bind, from religare. Don't forget to get yourselves down to the conference if you're not going to be there already. If you are going, I look very much to meeting you all there, and delivering my talk on zero sleep, because I'm actually on tour with the band that end of that week, so I'm going to have to drive over from Nottingham and to the conference, and then later on drive back and finish the tour. So I will see you all there. I look forward to meeting you all. Let's go out with a song, I guess. This is the Hold Steady, and I will see you all next time if I don't see you at the conference. Later.